Hi, this is Amisha with Signal 8 on Under the Influence, and we're here at DigimarCon 2025 in San Francisco, and I have Sarah Frui from Resonance Marketing with me, and she's a fractional CMO, and she has an amazing background. She's worked with companies like Google, Pinterest, and TikTok, and it's all around advertising and ad spending, but also go to market. So let's get into it. We're at the conference. You gave an amazing keynote earlier. What are some key takeaways from, your talk? Because I think some people might have missed that.
Yeah, so I was really focusing on how to leverage AI for small teams. And for me, it's really about building a framework that's scalable. So creating an AI checklist that's repeatable in terms of the process, looking at things like how you're QAing it, who's going to review it, who's going to train your team, making sure that you can have measurable results that you can report back to in terms of impact that are very quantifiable, and that it's a scalable process. You're not using this for like one-off niche tactics and things like that. And so I really sort of broke down a methodology for testing and implementing and rolling out AI, which is something that I love to help my clients with and really kind of accelerate people's learning and adoption of AI at a time when it's more needed than ever.
What do you think is the biggest misconception when you go to clients, it's the CEO and they just want marketing to do it, and marketing's like where you know where to go. What are some of the things that you're seeing that's a challenge, that it's bubbling up really, and here's some common challenges, and here's where to start for folks?
I think a lot of times, like, people are chasing the shiny objects. They see something and they want to go after it, and it's not necessarily strategic. It is not necessarily going to move the needle. And so it's really kind of being focused on the tactics and having clear goals for the company. So if we do this thing, how are we measuring it? What kind of impact are we expecting? And when the campaign's over, did we hit those goals and did we hit that targets? I think that when you have ambiguous goals, that's where you start to fall off the map. And it's also not overburdening your team. You can't do all the things at once. You have to really start to prioritize where you're going to move the needle the most. And you have to learn to say no to things or have hard conversations about swapping projects in and out so that you can have the right bandwidth, because I think there's just so many things out there that you want to try, but it's really important to make sure that your resources are constrained and that you're able to be really accountable in terms of how you're driving impact so you can hit those revenue numbers and really move the business forward.
Yeah, as marketing, we're always on the hook for those revenue numbers, and the CEO is like, well, we need to right. So it's not really, they're not asking you like which campaign worked or what's happening. But then I think when Gen AI hit, right, everybody's like, what are we doing? Why are we behind, right? And there was like everybody's hair was on fire, and it's really a tool that can help. But and you're talking about prioritization is really important as part of it. Where should somebody start if they're like, oh my God, I have to figure out AI for marketing and sale, working with sales and GTM? What are you seeing around that? How do you advise clients around not just the marketing piece for AI, but also for their GTM?
One of the first things that I really do is I kind of go on a listening tour. I interview different executives within the organization, key sales reps if there's an enterprise offering. I love talking to clients. I review case studies. I look at the data in terms of where people are interacting on the website, and I try and pull in all these different bits of information to really form an opinion on what's working well for the business, where there's opportunities to grow. Quite often it's kind of a misalignment in terms of messaging, and that's kind of where I start, is getting everybody on the same page in terms of who's the business, who are we serving, how are we meeting their needs, and really sort of codifying that for the organization and then scaling that out through different programs, because quite often those things can start in a good place, and then when you have a new marketing leadership kind of take over, a lot of that gets thrown to the wayside and you just sort of go back to old habits. So it's really being thoughtful about listening to the customer and applying those insights to a new strategy moving forward, and also meeting the needs of your board or your executive team in terms of the goals that you're trying to hit, whether it's launching a new product, expanding it into a new region, up-leveling into an enterprise offering or what have you, to make sure that you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. So the things that are working, you can continue to lean in on that and then create space to move into these new categories and opportunities.
Right, because it's not all about Gen AI. I mean, we still have to do good, go to market. And, one of the themes that has come up in this conference is there's a lot of fragmentation now because of all the different MarTech tools between sales and marketing and product and customer. Everyone's buying their own technology, creating their own kind of scattered. That's one piece of it, is a technology, and then the processes within each piece of the org is different too. And so how do you help tie? It seems like everything's really fragmented, so there seems to be a need for orchestration. So what are your thoughts around that? What are you seeing, and how do you help people think about it, especially convincing the CEO around this?
I think forming really solid relationships with your rev ops and marketing ops partners is really important. One of the things that you want to make sure of when you're adding new technologies to your stack is that you don't have duplicative things, that you don't have things that create conflict with the systems that you already have established. Like if you're using big things like Salesforce or Marketo or HubSpot and you want to add something new to the stack, is it compatible? Is there a Zapier integration that you can do? What kind of heavy lifting is it going to require for internal teams? Can you access those resources? Like there's been plenty of times where I've had a really great idea and I want to implement those things, but it requires counterparts that are booked up for the quarter or for the half of the year because there's some sort of product that we need to roll out or some other initiative that's taken priority. And so you need to be mindful of the impact of new solutions that you're bringing into the business, how they impact others, making sure there's budget and timing and buy-in for it, that it's not just serving your needs, but ideally serving multiple teams' needs, so that you're getting the biggest bang for your buck and that you don't create work that's going to add conflict or frustration down the line.
And how do you talk to your clients about that? I mean, I know when I, was in a company and I brought in someone like yourself, it's always easier for you to tell everyone at the executive table, like, your baby is ugly. It's kind of like, oh, what's marketing talking about, right? And then you have somebody come in, they say the same thing, and everyone's like, and you're like, what happened? So what can we, as leaders and people at companies, how do we help convince the CEO and the rest of the executive team on marketing? It's not just about AI, right? Like a GTM or some of the things that we're trying to do, so we can help the company meet the revenue goals, but sometimes it's not aligned. Mm-hmm. So how do we as marketers get that seat at the table and get people to like really listen and lean into what we're saying?
I think part of it is internal politics, right? Finding your champions. Who is the CEO listening to? Who is this key decision maker go to for advice? Are they in alignment with you, or are they going to whisper in that person's ear and have a conflicting statement in terms of what you're trying to move forward? So really trying to find your allies. I try and start there and understand if there's going to be someone who's going to oppose an initiative that I'm trying to present, how can I win that person over first before I go to the next level up, to make sure that I have the right support in place for my own programs and making sure that they see the value in this, that it's not just serving me, but ideally it's serving the both of us. And also I think just having data, like making sure that you can prove the ROI of what you're trying to do, but it's a numbers game. I think CEOs really respond to that, and doing your research, knowing those numbers inside and out, because if they start to poke a hole in it and you falter, that's where the whole thing falls apart. And so you really need to be confident in what you're doing and do your research. You can't just show up like from a meeting unprepared. That's where things are going to fall apart. And so politics and really knowing your numbers inside and out.
I think knowing your numbers inside and out and building that business case is really important, because I think that's how CEOs are thinking. And then also, let's not forget the CFO, right? Like that's where the money is coming from. How do you work with your clients, in helping them? So because you're talking these different languages to each of your constituents, how do you help, and how do you help them think about it?
I think that's one of the joys of being a marketer, is that we're used to kind of navigating different ways of communicating with different people and having conversations and being persuasive. And so it's really kind of understanding like what is important to the CFO in this situation. Do they have a healthy budget? Do we just get funding? Maybe there's a lot of money to go around. Or is this a time where we're tightening our belts? Maybe we didn't hit our number this quarter and there's a lot of pressure to sort of reduce. Is there something that I could give up in exchange for this new investment that I want to make? Are there things that I'm willing to kind of like play ball with in terms of like the current stack and the current initiatives that we're investing in, and just making really smart decisions there. But it's really kind of understanding where is that other person coming from and trying to understand their perspective so that they feel aligned with you rather than in competition with you.
Right. So, also you're saying, listen first and understand the landscape before you just run around and say, like, this is what we're doing, right? I think we often fall in that trap because we're under the gun to do so much in a very specific amount of time. Mm-hmm. Or people are like, oh, we don't see any results right away. And you're like, well, it takes, to convince and say it takes some time. So, I feel like some quick wins when you're new and an executive team is important. But then also, working with other folks and bringing them in to help kind of build your reputation up as a trusted leader is important too. What is your one last thing you'd like to leave everybody with as they're thinking about digital marketing, going forward for the rest of this year?
I think we live in a time where, I talked about this earlier in the conference, but I think creativity is really essential. It's one of the things that I've always loved about being a marketer, and I'm really excited about the possibility now that creativity is really being unlocked, and that's, I think, the key to winning now. It's not doing things that you've done in the past. It's really thinking outside of the box and coming up with new creative solutions to win your clients over, win new business, hit those sales numbers, but do it in a way where you're going to stand out versus fall in line.
I love that. I mean, I think it's back, everyone's like saying AI, we're losing creativity. No, now AI can do the work that, we don't really want to do and kind of make us more efficient and effective in the research, but then it allows us a time to breathe. And instead of figuring out like, oh, we need to do this to get over the finish line, we can now have the time to think and brainstorm with our teams and actually maybe some of the initiatives that we were thinking about, we could actually do them. I love that we're going back to creativity. So thank you so much, Sarah, for joining us, and stay tuned for more coverage from Digimarcom.